Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of my little mini-series, my 54-part mini-series, where I talk about the hero packs and dive into the 15, I guess in this case 17 cards that go alongside our hero, plus the Obligation and Nemesis pack to just understand what's coming to the table when you play with each hero. And we've got quite a few of them now, so you can always go back and look at them. I'd like to think that the level of quality at this point is still high enough that I would recommend going back to watch all of them. But we will hit a tipping point where I'll say, oh God, please don't go watch Iceman. Please don't go watch Deadpool. I'm not at that point yet. I'm going to try to keep this one shorter because I know Angel went on for quite a while. And that was a surprise to even me because I like Angel, but I didn't foresee that he would go on as long as it did. I'm going to be right up front. I like Psylocke as a character. I don't love Psylocke as a hero. And it's not even her fault. It's just I'm kind of incompetent. And as we get into it, I will point out just parts of the game where she is so dynamic. She is the hero for some people. She's just not the hero for me. I go cross-eyed sometimes. So right off the bat, we've got the alter ego, Betsy Braddock, 3 recovery, mutant psionic, with the ability Psionic Manifestation at setup, put 2 Psi energy upgrades into play, Psi Knife side face up. And the action of exhaust 1 Psi energy upgrade, shuffle 1 Psionic card from your discard pile into your deck. So overall, actually let's get into the weapons just real quick. So the Psi energy weapon upgrades. So both of them are permanent. Only the katana is restricted. But the Psi Knife gives Psylocke +1 thwart, and the hero response of exhaust Psi Knife, generate a genius resource, you may flip this card. So when you flip it over, it turns into a katana. But we'll keep these here just for reference. And then the Psi Katana is, like I said, a permanent, restricted, gives Psylocke +1 attack, and her basic attacks gain piercing. That can be really important. And a hero response of exhaust Psi Katana, generate a punch resource, a strength resource, and you may flip this card. So I think the important thing to point out here is that those are hero resources. I think I have fallen prey to mistakenly using them on the alter ego form before. It happens with every hero that has a hero response for the resource generator. You just have to pay attention to it. And sometimes I just fail to. When you're alter ego form, you're supposed to be using them to shuffle psionic cards and or Professor X back into your deck. But let's get into the hero real quick. So she becomes Psylocke on her hero side, a 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense hero with psionic and X-Force. Hand size is 4, hit points is 10. On the other side, it was a hand size of 6. So you go down 2 hand size. Luckily, you have hero resources on the other side. So these sort of make up for the lack of hand size. She is psionic X-Force with the psionic energy control interrupt that is used in all of her basic powers. When you use one of Psylocke's basic powers for attack or defense, flip 1 Psi energy upgrade. I realize that this does not say forced interrupt, but for the longest time, I played it as every time I used a basic attack, defense, what have you, I was flipping one of these, and you don't have to. I just wish it said you may flip. Doesn't need to be there if you know the rules well enough, but if you are incompetent like I can be, I don't read that the way that it was intended. But I have checked. I have watched streams where the streamer is very helpful to point out that I am wrong. It's not mandatory. It just could have been written a little bit better to clarify that. Maintaining these weapons to augment her stats. She can be great. She can be a 3-1-2 hero. She can be a 1-3-2 hero. There's a lot going on here. And like I said, for some players, she is the hero for you. She speaks to what, really helps to make your game feel satisfying. I just don't have the mental capacity for Psylocke all the time. Some days, I just feel like I'm popping off. I do feel like I'm just awesome, and I'm playing her the way that she was intended. other days, I'm just like, why did I pick this hero? And so in preparation for this, when I was going through everything and trying to make sure that I understood her kit, that was absolutely the way I felt. Why am I doing this? I'm getting, my brain is rotting trying to handle this. So first up, we have her signature ally, Angel, as we had in the last episode, just swapping with each other. That is actually something that I feel like I do sort of dislike sometimes when Fantasy Flight. We've kind of gotten past that era now, I think, at least in terms of where we currently are in 2024. But where they put out a pair of heroes and the ally for both of them is the other one, which means that if you're kind of excited and you want to play with them, it means that there's just a card in both of the packs that are just wild resources, which is not great. It's kind of nitpicking, though. That's not something that I'm going to really tear anybody down for. It's just an observation that I was like, oh, I don't get to play my heroes the way that I want to if I'm playing them right out the box and I'm super excited about them on the day of release. Either way, so we've got a 3-cost ally with 1 thwart, 2 attack, and 3 health with the response, when you play Angel from your hand, ready your identity. Pretty much the same as Lady Sif. I wish Lady Sif was maybe 3 cost. Especially for Thor, because she's super expensive. But other than the fact that he has the aerial trait, so he can key into some of that, there's nothing too special about Angel. I do like the extra activation. Psylocke really benefits from having extra activations, and some of her other cards will mean that you can do more and more. Being able to use her interrupt ability to basically flip both of her psionic weapons if you want to is something that I have done before, where I start out in a form where I'm dealing 2, where I'm thwarting for 3, flip one of the weapons, play out Angel, thwart for 2, then on the flip over the other weapon. Now I'm ready so that on the next turn I can attack for 3. Is that something that could have been accomplished another way? Probably, but it is something that I have done where I'm thinking far enough ahead to plan. He can be a strategic card, but for the most part, there's nothing so remarkable about him that I think highly of Angel. We'll just go through the cards we have one ofs before we move on to the multiples. So we've got Training Regimen, a 1-cost support, training with the action Exhaust Training Regimen. Search your deck for a skill card and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. If you are in hero form, discard 1 card from your hand. I have not played into this card a lot. I can see the value of it. And the other card, she has 3 cards in her kit that are skill. So this is a way for you to go get those from your deck. Most importantly, this is from your deck. So if you have a thin deck, this card doesn't do anything. If you've reshuffled and you know that you have some skills in there, if you've added some skills from other aspects, that can be super beneficial. While in hero form, you will discard a card. The fact that you can go get what you need in the moment is very helpful. It's just not a card that I think about a lot, probably just because, like the Warren Industries card from last episode, it just does what it does, and it does it well enough that you just use it and you don't necessarily, it doesn't stand out in your mind. Moving on to the skills. Let's see if we can fit all of them on here at once. I think we can. Okay, cool. So these are the 3 skills that Psylocke can naturally go get with Training Regimen. We've got Martial Training, a 1-cost upgrade that gives skill that gives Psylocke +1 defense, and a hero response of, after Psylocke defends against an attack, discard Martial Training, ready Psylocke. I don't often favor the defense here. Obviously, you use it for that 1 extra boost of defense, but you get that free ready. It's super nice in a moment where you need to preserve your life, but you need to be attacking next turn, or you need to be thwarting next turn. This card can be super clutch. It can just sit there. You don't have to use it up right away, but when you need it, but I value it for the ready over the extra defense. Next, we have Psionic Training, a 1-cost event, also a skill trait. Psylocke ignores the guard and patrol keywords. That can be super helpful. After Psylocke thwarts, discard Psionic Training, confuse an enemy. Once again, I favor this card more for one part than the other. I really love being able to get it past guard and patrol, and confusing an enemy, while it is relevant, I find myself so often going up against steady and stalwart villains that I kind of forget that this is an extra thing that it can do. But just having it around as a permanent void guard and patrol can be so helpful that I would much prefer to use that. This would have been so helpful against the Marauders when everything started to get guard. This is such a tech card for that scenario. Last up, we have weapons training. I realize now they all have training in their name. I did not notice that before. A 2-cost upgrade skill. Psylocke gains Retaliate 1. Gotta love that. And hero response after Psylocke attacks, discard weapons training. Ready each weapon upgrade you control. That can be great because you can kind of store up the ability to have 2 extra resources in a turn. And this actually, I do benefit both sides. I would rather keep the Retaliate, but knowing that I can get that weapon upgrade refresh is so nice and is something that you can really plan around and just kind of is the difference maker sometimes. All right, moving on to multiples. We have 3 copies of Blades of Fury. We'll just concentrate on one of them though. So it is a 3-cost event. Attack Psionic. Hero attack. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. For each Psi Knife you control, choose an enemy and confuse it. For each Psi Katana you control, choose an enemy and deal 2 damage to it. This is the start of a trend that I appreciate. I love this for Psylocke. I love this as a thing that a Psylocke player can kind of tinker with. This is such a headache for me. This is where I love being able to just spread out 6 damage. I love being able to throw out some confuses, but trying to manage which weapons I have just gives me a headache sometimes. And I think the fact that it's a Psi Knife and a Psi Katana also makes it so that I get them confused. I believe, nope, actually now that I look at it, I'm looking at the other cards that are coming up, they don't have it templated the same. Sometimes Knife is first, sometimes Katana is first. So either way, I love a card like this. I love that you can spread the damage. I don't love that this isn't considered a separate attack. So on a card that basically says when you deal, once again, we'll go back to Venom, who I think I talked about last week. Venom takes extra damage. Well, no, that actually still works for Venom. There have been times where because it's not considered a separate attack, it has mattered. All of that to say, this is still a powerful card. 3 for 6, or 3 for 4 and a confuse, or 3 for 2 and 2 confuses. This is so modular that it is a good card. It's impossible to debate that this isn't a card that is fun and worth using, but it just kind of gives me a headache. It's the reason why Psylocke is just not the hero for me. Again, we have 3 copies of Mental Detection, a 2-cost event, Psionic Thwart, hero action, remove 1 threat from a scheme. For each Psi Knife you control, remove 2 additional threat from that scheme. For each Psi Katana you control, draw a card. Yeah, I can say pretty easily, this is my favorite card out of her kit because removing 1 threat for 2 is not great. Moving 3 threat or 5 threat is stellar. But being able to remove 2 or 3 threat and draw a card or 2, this is the difference maker for me. This is where I feel like I'm jiving the most with Psylocke. There are more powerful hero thwart cards out there. There are better ones with better rates that do cool things with their hero. This is the one that I like the most because generally I am able to set up my weapons in such a way that I'm getting what I need. Sometimes you over thwart and you've only got 2 thwart to worry about. You take off 3, but you need to do that because you can't afford to leave that extra 1 behind. I don't know what scenario that is, but I have found times when it's like, I would rather clear out this scheme than, well, I guess it would be with like a side scheme. I would rather clear out the side scheme and not have it around and only draw 1 card over leaving it sitting there with 1 threat on it and drawing 2 cards. It could be the difference maker in both directions, but I have found that this is the card that in its modular state I benefit from the most. And we've got 2 copies of Psionic Misdirect, a 2-cost event, Defense Psionic, Hero Interrupt. When you would take any amount of damage from an enemy, prevent 2 of that damage. For each Psi Katana you control, prevent 2 additional damage. For each Psi Knife you control, confuse that enemy. Great card, fun card. It's something that when you draw it right before the villain phase starts, it can really make you feel secure in how your turn is going to be. It's the kind of card that if I see it in my hand and I'm planning for my next turn, it's like, do I really want to leave this as one of the 4 cards in my hand and only draw 3 more? And often I will choose to do that. But it does kind of feel like a feel bad when you don't get to, when you've only got 4 cards in your hand and this has got to be one of them that you're retaining between turns. Now, that does also mean that you had the opportunity to use it last turn and you just didn't. Maybe you're in alter ego form and you drew into it. That can feel bad. But when I'm in hero form and I had to keep this, it's a card that I will readily keep because it's going to help me win. But it is a bit of a feel bad because it's reducing the amount of cards that I'm drawing. And last up, we've got Telepathic Suggestion. Maybe the card that I forget about the most. When it's in my hand, I just forget about it. And that might just be me being absent-minded. Great card, though. It is a 2-cost event. Psionic, Hero Interrupt. When you reveal a card from the encounter deck, cancel its when revealed effects. For each Psi Katana you control, choose an enemy and deal 2 damage to it. For each Psi Knife you control, choose a scheme and remove 1 threat from it. This would probably overtake Mental Detection as my favorite card if I just remembered that I had it. I forget that this is in my hand in reaction to encounter cards so often that I just fail so hard with this card. And that's what keeps it out of contention for my favorite card, is I'm just bad at playing it. But other than that, I think it's an interesting card because being able to say no to the encounter deck is so powerful. It's something we don't get a lot of, or if it is something we get a lot of, it's in hero cards for heroes that I just don't touch, and so I don't have the experience with them. This is such a powerful effect. Being able to deal some damage, being able to remove some threat is so powerful. It does so much. It can be such a difference maker. And in a world where I was just a more competent Psylocke player, it would probably be my favorite card. But I fail at using it every time. Even though I can mentally say I'm ready to use Psionic Misdirection, I always forget I'm ready to use Telepathic Suggestion. Alright, so that is the 17 cards from her kit. Let's move on to her obligation real quick. Body Swap. Some weird... Okay. This was kind of looking weird to me. Like, the card just kind of like disappears into the background. Body Swap. Obligation. Give to the Betsy Braddock player. You cannot flip your Psi Katana upgrades. When revealed, flip each of your energy upgrades to Psi Katana. Remember, they are restricted, so that means that you would be bumping off any other weapons that you might have that are restricted. So flip over your energy weapons to Psi Katana and exhaust them. Or exhaust each of them. Alter Ego action. Discard a psionic card from your hand. Discard this obligation. So this could come back. So this plays into her backstory where her and... What's the other character called? Oh man, I just read... I say just as if it wasn't like 8 months ago. I just read the X-Men annual where she gets the legacy virus. What the... Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. Okay, long story short... Betsy Braddock was a British woman who got mind swapped by Mojo into a Asian body, and that Asian body's name is Quanin. Quanin, that's the name. So Betsy and Quanin's minds got swapped. It's a long story. They kind of wanted you to forget about it until they didn't want you to forget about it anymore, and it became relevant again. This is the kind of obligation that she needed. I appreciate that it does sort of restrict you and really messes with your ability to do things, but I think that it is a easy enough card to get rid of as long as you have a psionic card in your hand, which Betsy has enough of them around, and if you're in the right aspect, you're going to have access to psionic cards. So this isn't a hard card to overcome, but it can certainly change the math, and I think that is a sign of a good card, a good villain card, or obligation, is when it messes with your ability to progress your gameplay. Moving on to her Nemesis kit, we've got Chimera, a 1 scheme, 1 attack, 5 health, Marauder Psionic minion. Force interrupt, when Chimera activates against you, she gets plus X scheme and plus X attack for this activation, where X is the number of genius resources on cards you control. So this can be really good. It can be really bad. She can be kind of a nothing burger sometimes, but for the most part, you have upgrades out. If they have the resource on them, like the Psi Knife does, she can be deadly. But also, there's a strong chance that you only have 1 or 2, so she's only attacking for 3 or scheming for 3, and that's manageable for the 1 or 2 turns it takes you to take her out. She's not bad, but she can be a pain in the butt. We've got Interdimensional Plunder, a side scheme with 2 threat on it. When revealed, place 1 threat here for each upgrade in play. So this is going to be at least 2 with Psylocke in play, and she's always going to be in play because this is tied to her as a nemesis. So it's gonna automatically have 4 threat on it. Could have more. It does have the acceleration icon on it. It's the kind of side scheme that I do want to get rid of if I think that the game's going to go on for 2 or more additional turns. If I'm about to end the game, I don't care about this side scheme. But if the game's going to go on for a while, this is the kind of one that you're going to want to rally to get rid of. And especially if you have multiple players, you really need to make a decision immediately. Like, this might have 15 threat in it. Do we care? Or are we just going to roll with it and go? So I guess in some ways, it's not the best side scheme because it's one you can completely ignore. But you had to make that call. You have to make that call almost immediately, because if you decide that you're going to get rid of it, you need to get rid of it. If you decide you're going to ignore it, you just ignore it. We've got 2 copies of Telekinetic Dragon, a treachery. When revealed, take X indirect damage, where X is the number of genius resources on cards you control. If X is 0, this card gains Surge. So this is going to do something to you. Plus, it has the boost ability, choose to either spend a genius resource or confuse your identity. So this is either going to deal some damage to you, or it's going to call up something else. And I appreciate that in Nemesis kit treacheries or Nemesis kit cards. Either they do something or they surge into something else so that they're not just blank cards in the encounter deck. Obviously, I don't like losing, but I would prefer that in terms of card design, that cards actually do something if they're going to be put into the encounter deck from the Nemesis kit. And this does that. And the last card for the day is Psionic Illusion, a psionic attachment which you attach to your energy, which you attach to your identity. When you attack an enemy, name a resource type, then discard the top card of your deck. If that card does not have the resource named, change the target of this attack to a friendly character of your choice and discard this card. So this is so obnoxious because you're pulling your punches because you just don't know when you're going to hit a friendly enemy. Unless you're like Domino or Magic, who knows the top of their deck. You either have to go for broke and hope that you don't punch your friend, which you kind of want to so you can get rid of this card, or you're pulling your punches because you just assume I'm not going to get it right and I'm going to punch my friend, and then I can kind of hit the ground running from there. This card is probably in, the top 10 cards that can mess up your game so quickly. Love it for that. I love the fact that it really throws a wrench into everything. But in the moment, you're cursing that this card even came into play, because now you're just going, okay, I need to decide what I'm going to do here, and punching my friend is kind of almost what I want to do. That is Psylocke. She's a powerful hero, no question, but she's just not the hero for me. She has a lot of pieces that are constantly moving, and Love that for her. Love that for anybody that loves doing that. But at the end of the day, I have not mastered Psylocke enough to really feel secure in playing her. And, that's just what it is. So we will be moving on to, I guess we're going to the Cable and Domino. I think I'm going to do Cable first just so that I can kind of end the X-Force wave and the Next Evolution wave with my favorite hero from the wave, Domino. Spoilers there. But either way, if you love this kind of content, if you love card analysis, cannot do anything more than recommend Winning Hand. If you enjoy talking about the villain cards, the Nemesis cards, the encounter deck altogether, go look at the Winning Hand. And on top of that, as I always do, I recommend channels like Solo Marvel Champion and Ray Plays Games. And then I forgot about this, but he's just been gone for so long, but I have faith that he'll be back one day. And even if he doesn't, just go back and look at his catalog. Get Up in Game. I think he subscribed at one point, and he might still be subscribed, but I don't know if he's watching this content. Either way, look forward to him coming back if he ever does. If not, great back catalog. Go watch it because the content is still valuable. Either way, like I said, we'll be moving on to Cable next week and Domino after that. But until next time, I thank all of you for your time, and I will see you then. Thank you.